In honor of fall and the spooky season soon approaching, I thought I'd bring back another classic for this channel, where it all began, a sentient object romance book review. You might be wondering, Maddie, what do sentient romances have to do with Halloween? And a couple of weeks ago, I would be asking the same thing. But that was before I stumbled upon today's reading discussion material. And now I'm a changed woman. Soon you will be too, if you decide to stick around. For better or for worse, that's for you to decide. I'd personally go with better though, because this was a quick, lighthearted read filled with magic and demons. And no, I wouldn't normally categorize demonic creatures as lighthearted, but you'll understand what I mean in a bit. And I know it's only September, but I don't think it could ever be too early to get into the Halloween spirit. As soon as I see that first crisp leaf fall to the ground, it's go time for me. This 70-page novella is called Corny, an F for F candy corn romance by Sabrina Cross. And as you can tell, I'm making candy corn sugar cookies today to stay on theme. If you're unfamiliar, F for F stands for female for female. So for all my lesbian and bisexual viewers, this one's for you. I think this is the first sentient story I've read so far that doesn't have a male or object presented as male love interest. We love the representation, Sabrina. And I just remembered that this book is one of a 4-part series, so if you enjoy this review, let me know and I can read the other ones too. But before we get into the book, I wanted to talk a little bit about the author. Pretty much all of the novellas I talk about on here are from self-published indie authors, and I respect that very much. I know how much time, money, and effort goes into producing a completed work like this. Sabrina Cross and other authors like her not only write the story, they edit and revise, come up with or commission cover art, format everything on top of marketing. That is no small feat. Even fun stories like this one require a lot of expertise in different skill sets, and I commend Sabrina for that. I know I don't have a huge following, but I try my best to shout out lesser known writers alongside more popular ones. I think by now you guys can tell that I have a pretty diverse array of interests and reading habits, and I enjoy making room to discuss all of it. According to her website, Corny is actually Sabrina's first published novella. She loves monster and superhero cartoons, and that's part of what inspired her to start writing these sentient object romances. And she also has the cutest little pet cat. It also looks like she's currently working on a sentient pommel horse romance inspired by the Olympics, which sounds incredible, and I need to read that now. But first, let's get into this candy corn romance. There are a total of 11 chapters in this book, so I'll give you a little summary of each one, and then also my thoughts as I go along. In the first chapter, we're introduced to the main character Clover and her 3 friends, Violet, Fern, and Jasmine. I think the flower names are really cute. Personally, I do wonder if the author chose them to have any significance to the characterization of each girl, but I don't think so, as I looked up the meaning of each of the flowers and they really don't have any connection to the people in the story. I kind of wish they did though. I think it would have been another interesting layer to add that would have helped round out the characters a little bit more. The story is only 70 pages, so there's not a ton of room for character development. I think being more intentional with smaller details like names becomes even more important in shorter works like this one to help make them feel just a little bit more complete. Clover, Violet, Fern, and Jasmine are sitting together in Violet's room late at night, preparing a ritual of sorts. A few weeks earlier, they stopped at a yard sale where Fern purchased a wooden chest filled with all sorts of mystical books, crystals, feathers, and other craft items like crochet hooks and yarn. It turns out that the books were filled with magic spells. After the discovery, Violet comes up with a great idea. Let's find and use one of these spells to help them all get laid. It just so happens that this entire friend group was struggling in the relationship department at this time. Violet was turning 30 soon and getting impatient. Jasmine had just went through a divorce. Fern had standards no man seemed to be able to meet. And Clover wasn't having any luck with men or women. Side note, I have no idea what the circumstances around Jasmine's divorce are. Maybe Sabrina goes into some more detail in one of the other books, but I do know she's like 26 or 27, and I know that divorce itself is rarely a fun experience, but I just feel like being a young divorcee is kind of fun. It's kind of chic, I don't know. Like, your 20s are kind of chaotic and messy, and young divorce I feel like is the pinnacle of that. And you got it out of the way already. Good for you. Getting divorced early is kind of like being an overachiever because you just proved you can handle such a big life challenge already when some of your friends' frontal lobes haven't even finished developing yet. Like, no need to flex on the rest of us, Jasmine. I'm not divorced or even in a relationship right now, so I can't personally relate to Jasmine. But I can relate to Fern. Clover calls her picky, but in my opinion, and I'm totally not projecting or anything, Fern has very reasonable boundaries and standards for her prospective partners, and I respect that she knows what she wants and she won't settle for anything less. Even if that means waiting a little while longer, or casting spells late at night. And look, I'm not here to judge their witchy activities, okay? We've all been there. And if you swear you've never been down bad enough to sit through one of those TikTok tarot readings that assures you and like 10,000 other viewers that communication with your soulmate is coming soon, just know that I know you're lying. And it's okay. This is a safe space. It's a judgment-free zone. We're all allowed to be a little delusional sometimes as a treat. They all write down what they want in their future partners, burn the papers, and then cover the ashes in their blood. That's literally me at 3 a.m. on a random Tuesday trying to manifest a boyfriend without the blood though. I'm not good with blood or needles. They bury the ashes in Violet's yard. Nothing happens immediately, so she assumes the spell didn't work. Everyone seems unbothered by this, except for Violet. And then Jasmine calls her out and is like, maybe if you didn't choose the worst possible men, then you wouldn't have to turn to the occult for assistance. And on some level, I do agree. But also, I stand for women's rights and wrongs, so I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. Maybe men should just stop being terrible choices, Jasmine. You're the one that's divorced, so I thought you of all people would be able to empathize with Violet on that. Anyways, in this chapter, Clover's unconventional occupation is revealed. She makes and sells crocheted stuffies, but they aren't your typical characters. They are grown-up themed. Remember the crochet hooks I mentioned earlier? Clover uses those to make a stuffed candy corn plushie with some pretty sizable front and back real estate, covered with a black bikini, if you catch my drift. Imagine you're scrolling on Etsy or Pinterest or something, and then you come across the stuffed candy corn with just huge honkers. I think that would make my day. Actually, this reminds me of a time when I was scrolling aimlessly on Etsy, which I do sometimes late at night for fun. You can come across some pretty unique items on there, and I discovered a seller who made doll head straws. They basically decapitated and then scalped this poor Barbie doll and then stuck a plastic reusable straw through them. And so obviously I immediately went to the reviews to see who exactly was buying these. And they had entirely 5-star reviews. And like hundreds of them. The seller had over 900 reviews. It was insane. And I'm not here to yuck anybody's yums, but it was definitely jarring to be hit with a photo of a bald doll head on a straw stuck into like a green smoothie in the middle of me looking at like rings and jewelry. In chapter 2, Clover goes home and goes to bed. She's awoken in the middle of the night by a strange noise. Of course, it's the candy corn who has come to life. It turns out that the spell did work, sort of. The ladies accidentally made a deal with the devil in the process, though. Oopsies. #just girly things. Each of them has 1 year to find their true love, or they will be sacrificed to the devil. And as a fun little bonus, each of them were assigned a demonic spirit as a guide. Clover's demon just so happened to take the form of her adult candy corn because she knitted them with the magic crochet needles. Yikes. The candy corn is a succubus that goes by the name Candy, which made the rest of the story quite awkward for me because my childhood dog's name was also Candy. Rest in peace. Also, if you're wondering what a succubus is, it's basically a female spirit that seduces people in their sleep. Over the next week or so, Clover and her friends went out pretty much every night, trying to find their true love with no luck. Clover confides in Candy about her struggles to find the right one. Oh, also, Candy sleeps in bed with Clover now, which is totally normal and nothing more is going to come of that, I'm sure of it. Candy's also frustrated with Clover's lack of action because, as a succubus, she feeds off of that lustful energy. With some persistence, Candy convinces Clover to just DIY it. So that happens. Don't worry though, she makes Candy turn around. A couple of weeks later, Clover has a date set up with an actual human man she met at a coffee shop. The date goes okay. It's well enough that Clover invites him to come home with her, but surprisingly, Candy doesn't let their shenanigans get too far. She knocks him down and drags him out the door in her stuffed candy corn frame. When Clover confronts Candy about this, she says she sensed that he had a wife and children with her demonic powers, and that he just wanted to use her. Even though she's a demon, Candy's still a girl's girl. The pair then crawl into bed and drift off to sleep. Clover has some pretty vivid dreams tonight, one of which involves a saucy moment between herself and Candy in her demon form, not as the candy corn plushie, thank God. This dream is so sensorial that it wakes Clover up with the urge to finish what had begun during her slumber. And you guys, I hate to say it, but she does use the stuffed candy corn here to help. Clover comes down from her hormonal high and is like, what did I just do? And why did I kind of like it? And I, as the reader, was also asking similar questions during this chapter, but regardless, now Clover can't look at Candy the same. How is this going to impact her dating? She needs to find her true love to stay alive, remember? This was the point in the story where I correctly guessed the ending, but I won't share it now, just in case you haven't caught on yet. Candy and Clover sort of avoid each other for the rest of the week. They act like the roommate you sometimes run into in the kitchen, but you don't really interact with outside of that. Eventually, they figure things out though, and Clover's dreams continue, becoming more and more recurring. Clover and Candy are growing so close now that Clover's not sure she can keep dating other people. She shares her feelings with Candy, but all of a sudden, Candy's spirit is nowhere to be found. It's left the courageous candy corn doll. Realization sets in. Part of Clover is relieved. Her life is spared now because she found true love. But her true love is gone forever, it seems. Falling in love with your demon is never easy, I suppose. Clover calls up Violet, who just decides to conjure up the devil and demand for Candy back, because that's gonna go really well for them. And surprise, it doesn't go well at all. The devil's basically like, a mere mortal, I'm not listening to you. And what were you expecting? The same person who got you into this mess was suddenly gonna have a change of heart and be all peace and love now? He's the devil, you know, from the Bible. Sorry, I don't know if you've seen those like Sonic Adventure voice dubbing videos, but every time I see something that's like devil adjacent, now I have to say, it's really cute that you're gonna defeat me with the power of friendship and all, but again, I'm the devil from the Bible. And I just feel like that quote is especially relevant here. Anyways, Clover's really sad that her demon girlfriend's gone, but even though the devil said no, Candy shows up again anyway, saying that Clover made a deal with the devil and Lucifer always keeps his word. And I don't want to be a romance hater or a vibe killer so close to the end, but the deal they made was about finding true love. It didn't say anything about keeping it. I think the devil needs to lawyer up or something, because he might have a case here, just saying. And then the story ends with, you guessed it, Candy and Clover getting intimate again as a celebration. I have to say, aside from the demonic stuff, Candy does seem like a catch. She treats Clover well, helps out with the crochet business, and she's a good cook. I won't say for sure, but if there was ever an opportunity for me to enter a relationship with a seductive demon, I would probably consider it. I mean, It's not like I'm having a ton of success with humans. Likely no, but never say never. I think my main critique of this book is that I wish it was longer. I feel like there were so many aspects of Clover's character and her relationship with everyone else that I wanted to be fleshed out more. I think this story suffered a little bit from front-loading a bunch of character background and context in the first chapter or so. Mostly because it's less than 100 pages, so there simply wasn't enough room for the story to unfold in a way that more naturally revealed the kind of information. A lot of the first chapter was just catching the reader up on everything that happened before this moment, where the four women were preparing to cast a spell, as well as describing each character's appearance. There are many ways to structure a story effectively, and many authors use this similar kind of strategy and find great success with it. I think the entire fantasy genre is a good example because there's so much character lore and detail readers need to become acquainted with in order to get the most out of the story being told. However, my personal preference is when authors sort of just throw us readers into the story and reveal relevant information organically as the plot unfolds. I am of the belief that a reader doesn't need to know every bit of information at the start. I think it's good to feel almost a little disoriented at first because then you pay closer attention. You become a more engaged reader. Because this is a novella, not an entire book, and certainly not a 500+ page fantasy novel. I believe Sabrina could have structured it with more of the backstory of how these women stumbled upon a chest full of magic spells sprinkled throughout, revealing details from that day when it was more relevant and effective. And because there was so much front-loading, the strength of the writing struggled to find its footing in the beginning for me. It was quite heavy on the telling instead of showing, simply because there wasn't enough space to show properly. If you are confused about what I mean by showing and telling, I go into that writing concept more in depth in my Colleen Hoover Reminders of Him book review, because that novel had tons of examples. But basically, it's just two different styles of writing. Showing focuses more on using descriptive language and action to help carry the story along, while telling is much more straightforward and to the point. Both have a place in writing, but to use them effectively, you must strike a careful balance. Like I said earlier, Sabrina has written 3 other books following the other characters' journeys to find true love. So, if you'd like me to read and discuss those 2, let me know. Otherwise, I think that's all I have to say about this sentient romance story. I think I'd rate it 4 out of 5 demonic candy corns. If you want to check the story out for yourselves, I'll link Sabrina's Instagram down below, and you can also find the book on Amazon's Kindle Unlimited. And if you liked this video, feel free to like and subscribe for more if you're into that. And I'll chat with you all later. Goodbye.